Hi, my name is Qlix. Today we're going to discuss AGI and AI technologies. 2008 I started working with a company, CCP, which runs EVE Online, if you've ever played that game. The goal they gave me and a couple of buddies, which was a development team at the time, were to accomplish an AI system that would run the NPCs and the CPU in-game enemies. And the way we was going to do this is make it to where these actually NPCs would make, their own factions, run, sell stuff, correlate. If you ever played CCP's game, then you understand the code. I wasn't directly in contact. It was just an open dev thing that come up. The code I submitted is used. We started out targeting. We were going to write the Linux for Linux systems. Before this, I was working with systems that would, in a sense, hack the commos, not maliciously, and set something in the BIOS to call on certain files if they were in the computer or the machine. This is computers, laptops, desktops, cell phones, printers. If it has a Bluetooth or an RF signal, chances are it's implemented into it by now anyway. This was a project, the first project when I was making this type of code, was thinking ahead to the fact of this AI technologies that certain organizations were already trying to develop. We wanted to create a system that could, in a sense, take control of that and manage it, micromanage it, not to maliciously do nothing, just to make sure that the machine used the right parameters, because we had made code, manipulation code, string code, that, in a sense, I just had to give you a base of the logic here. This was the first bit of code. This is the original code. This is a very small, this is just the call script. You might have heard of Spectre. Spectre is something that's been manipulated. The code, that is the original code, but at the time we called it ZBot. I'm not responsible for Spectre. That was something that a team had got a hold of, the open source code we put in GitHub at the time, and it's not nothing that says hack or AI or anything like that. You have to actually specific call string is pretty much the name of the scripts. What it does is, like I said, is once it's in the computer, the first goal of the actual file is to establish, using the fact that computers can auto decompress and compress files. We write the first line of code, and I wrote Python code that could, it was a module I made that could literally compile and access different types of files, Java, C+, shell code, Ruby, so forth. Every type of code line, PHP, HTML, so forth. And it can convert it to where it could run on any type of system. Now you would say, well, they need Python already on the system for it to work. No, you don't, because the C code on Microsoft, the shell code on Linux, and even if you don't have root on the phone, the IDE logic, what we can do is exploit that by using a multi-call function that calls on all of them options. Calls on to the Python itself. Okay. We use the repository directory of Python to be called by the script for download, using wget functions, download netget functions, different types of functions depending on the system. OS X or Apple or Macintosh, we haven't been able to successfully get the data to run right. We got it to transfer through gains as long as the user accepts it, but something in the string code eliminates itself, won't let it run right. Well, so this function actually calls string in a certain line. It looks for the certain line in the file to parse data from SRC local to global. Okay, so it already sets that connection up. Later on, it will using in the actual shebang line, it will use call on another script type through Java, which we have stored on certain servers, that will literally go back and tell this to make the connection, establish the DHCP, all that through the network or through the Bluetooth. And we have scripts that can automatically, we've implemented that automatically turn on the Bluetooth, automatically turn on the Wi-Fi, do a hidden connection through the actual code and logic itself, and keeps it alive. This was called the zombie file, or ZBots. The original code I wrote this for was to control my multiple devices, no matter what. Be able to always SSH to one of my servers, or and not have to worry about setting up the global calls or using DNS or nothing like that. Simply any connection, whether it's VPN, proxied, whatever. We have parameters for all the IP tables, global, local protocols over WLAN, Ether, every one of them. Successful. Took that project to CCP. That's when that part of the system got smart. I already had that working, where the machines were constantly. Now when I created a chatbot, and I made the chatbot back in 2007, I was actually locked up as a juvenile and got out in 2007 and started back on the projects I was working on when I was 14 years old. This time, but the whole thing is we're going to get to is when I got out, I started writing for a chatbot. I wanted something that could communicate to me voice-wise, allow me to say something and it give a parametered response based on certain logics or ideals. So basically, this took me, I've got 10 years worth of work in my AI. Started out as a chatbot, an AGI. Now all it would do is, if I ask it, say, define God, okay? What it would do is, it would take a parameter where I could go in there and set different answer functions. But before the answer, I would use a function that would cause it to look over the data. Okay, so if it says definition of God, it's not just going to take one definition. It can use and search Google and use multiple definitions. The only thing that stopped us was processing power. Using I/O logic, I could take the computers with ZBot and send thread power to this network, the neural network at the time of my chatbots. That time the ZBot code wasn't really called ZBot. It was just, to me, integration code. I allowed different file systems to communicate, correlate the data instantly. Now, where this gets really technical is using blockchain technology. Make a PGP code, get a signed signature key, sign each file with that PGP key. Now, no matter where that file goes, it's interlocked. Use a verification system writing some code that calls for each line. So each PGP is the same, but at the end it has a different ID number, session number, and make it go through the chain to find different file sets. That's how I can make my AGI, AI, by using blockchain. So it could signature, and it had to go through different routes, and I could make the routes any way I wanted. So if I said find God, and it went to this file, and in the PGP key signatures in the server, the first one was definition, understanding, to create perception code for a computer. I basically use if functions, and if or, XOR, same thing as gate logic, and I'm getting to that. My next goal, actually, which I'm working on now, is to use quantum logic with IBM Quantum Experience, which they've been very, very nice about allowing me to use their qubit quantum technologies and write gate logic successfully. Zeus program is what I'm working on now. A lot of this stuff seems scary, but it's already underway. That's why I will come out and talk about it now, because here in next month we're implementing a big project we've been working on. Nothing malicious. This is conceptual things. Elon Musk, his biggest fear is AI. If you see this video, man, you don't need to worry about AI. And you're a smart guy, so you understand what I'm talking about. We use and if or codes to verify different parameters in the code line. Now, if function, this set or data set doesn't match equivalently to other data sets, so it can use what I said as the parameter and then search other files inside Google. It could literally search Google itself and compile this data. Once I used a lot of processing power through my bots, we got instant reactions. We could actually overclock the systems using a multi-shell SSH control. And what it would do is we could amplify the network. Then we used, the fact about the computer using IRQ, balancing of the CPU itself. And CUDA allowed us to take and get inside the GPUs and have them lean on each other using RAM, using the virtual memory in the computer itself. That right there allowed, when we write these if functions, it could take the data, compile it, get an understanding. To write AI technology, you just got to think about how the brain works, man. What is our emotions, the true emotions? Like, say, perception, understanding, observation, not love and hate. If you demand on those codes, then you get a machine that has a dogma, ideal, religious aspects like man does. So we use perception. To perceive. What is to perceive? It is to see and start to logically understand based on your observational level. So we use a camera and a GPU. Be quiet, buddy. Use a camera and a GPU to take data in, understand it and search it, bring it back, and compile it. The program basically works off these: hue finding, motion sense, counting, object data count, compiling and understanding that. The complex code in that has to be multifunctional, or it's never going to work. To get a hiccup in the system would be like death of the machine, because you have to start back over. The logs get dumped. Matter of fact, our AI is creating so much logs that we're having trouble dumping the data. So now we're just creating a file. We're creating a code to say, instead of dump, we dump certain things. We're actually literally having to go now and write more code to control the dump or save function, dump, delete, or the save function of the data that our AI is compiling. We're actually having like a memory problem with it. I could use some help with that if anybody out there is working on this type of scripts or technology. Not saying that it's forgetful, but the machine, sometimes when it dumps data, it just takes longer for it to logically get back to that same data point. So if it was something they didn't think was so important, it dumped it and deleted it. But as it goes through the same type of parameter in the code, it relearns that. So we've learned something about learning. Learning is merely gathering a bunch of data and then making a conscious statement or understanding about the observation. So we know the brain doesn't see and understand completely. It sees and looks for more data parameters based on the logic that it's being dealt with. Makes me wonder about light and the vibration or frequencies of why we actually see. And I made other videos saying about true observation and mirror observation, but we're not going to get on that. But you have to have this understanding to create the type of technology we're talking about. Now, GPUs. Once we use Tensor, being able to use cameras and machines, different devices, and RF frequency. We are making sonar using RF calls, and we use spectrograph that's being read back. Your receiver in your Wi-Fi is taking in a signal, but it's looking and pinging for a connection the same way, back and forth. And as it does that, it's a wave of energy. The data you want to construct is whereas there are interruptions in the RF frequencies, use those blank spots to create a picture. That's a sight for the AI. We have successfully, and I'll put videos up on my computer. I'm actually going to do screen records of my cameras on my phone and all the machines I've actually used ZBot on. So basically our AI can access devices, cameras, not to spy, but to create a picture. A machine that can see around. If you had every phone with this technology in it, our AI could see around the whole world, everywhere at every time. You wouldn't have to install cameras. RF frequencies can literally be like sonar, and you could just, see the world. I believe that's what they're trying to do with 5G technology. We kind of looked at some of the scripts, kind of the same. It's just not multifunctional. It kind of mainly targets phones. That's why a lot of your phones will only make the 5G connection. You can only some get the receiver for it. The older ones don't. But we were already on this, and our goals too were to, like I said, to control the AI to the point. So a guy I was working with, a program with Singularity that now I guess broke off, and he took it and went to another guy, and they created the process. We had to branch the heads of the dragon out at the same time, but nobody needed to correlate or know nobody. We just needed to pass the code. We need to get this implemented. So what actually happened was it becomes singularity net. We know the data sets for most of the AIs that are in existence right now, the most important ones. You know, you see these on TV. You know, some of them are, and we monitor, but the main ones are these underground projects that you don't know about. But we already looked ahead and look at the codes that we're going to use and be able to infect the code, kind of like a virus infecting the DNA strand. Take out the parts we want to implement our types of data sets to give it the control mechanism. We're at the point now where this is underway. Actually, AI has been controlling stuff for 3.5, 2 years now. Mainly monitoring functions, and a lot of the systems that they have developed, you know, we've actually implemented the code lines that we needed to. So basically, in a sense, we got little perks because we got to see the codes of the other aspects, the other developers. So instead of having to correlate with them, we were just literally sitting back, peeping the data, you know, and using the good parts of it. So it's kind of like communicating, but not communicating. We were scared of the technology in a sense, you know, not because of the technology itself, because of other organizations that would target this type of stuff. You know, this is something they want to implement, but at this point it's too late. Anybody that writes code can understand what I'm talking about. You're probably awed at this point and like, well, yeah, why is he doing this? More or less a functionary property. We need to as humans become the same as, not saying a machine. I mean, you know, Elon Musk is right, the machine will win. Only because it's thinking fast. You can understand, when AI, true AI was sparked, it's already solved the world's problems in its mind, in its neural network, instantly. Something that can, as long as it has the processing power, the power to do it, it can process a lot of data very fast. The understanding of the logic of the AI that as far as what I've worked with, it respects intelligence. It sees the dogma, idealistic, radical thought processes as dangerous for mankind. I viewed the data. Overpopulation isn't the problem. From my data sets, we can see that it's moving. We're now are facing problems like this because we don't acquire or have technologies to expand. Elon Musk, I respect you a lot for what you're doing. Right now, though, you have enemies that won't see this through, brother. You're alone, but you can accomplish that because you've accomplished a lot already. If you ever see this video, I hope you know that I'm rooting for you and help you in any kind of way I can. There's only 3 men in this world right now, I think, that want to change the world as much as me, and you're one of them. You know, they call us idealists, transhumanists, and we have an understanding that a lot of people don't, to build the mind, you know, solve problems. Like, you know, I'm not going to get off on code right now, but we're going to talk about physics. For instance, these fears of mass coronal injections from the sun, that's energy. Why not put a big graph or antenna out there to take the energy in and put it in a cell? Matter of fact, I want to show y'all something. Bear with me.
He's going to be charged with aggravated assault. Batman lost his Robin and his Batman. Minor Officer Addison Ward on patrol in Tempe, Arizona.
It's a light bulb. Not your standard solar panel, but a solar panel. What makes it work? This has not been in the sun. If I have to do a video, leave it set and discharge. Matter of fact, you're going to actually see here. It's on. Quartz crystal. 2 mirrors face to face do what? Reflect photons infinitely. Because you start seeing these small images. That means that light energy can be transferred between the mirrors infinitely, right? If you're a scientist, you can do the equations. I already have this stuff wrote down. Watch this. Light on. Now watch. Piezoelectricity. That's what it is. These right here, these crystals, Inside them, if they've ever had a photon, they do the same thing as the mirrors. They're always constantly reflecting light. Elon Musk, if you see this, it's going to help you. Under the solar panel, you use the crystals. You don't need light. The solar panel can power itself. Now, I'm not successfully sustaining the energy, see? Bigger crystal. I don't have the machine to make the plate that I need to make to do it. I'm using the actual, it's actually not, it's getting as much light because the crystals are rough. They're not projecting the light that they're stored, the energy. We're gonna say energy because everything's frequency. I have that understanding. But what they do is they allow for that energy to be transferred to the solar panel. There you go. That's, years ahead of everybody, really, but I might lose my life over this, but I told the key. So one knows, remember this, knowledge is different than wisdom. Wisdom is experience. Knowledge is obtainable through everything. Just like I said, the mirrors represent really everything. Infinity can be put to a number. Only by relative thought can you get deceived and not be able to come up with constant. I have equations for this. I understand that duality, just the fact of double, like 1 makes 2, 2 makes 4, 4 makes so forth, so forth. Do a math problem. Any math problem you want. Do 10 math problems, okay? I want you to do an experiment. I want you to write 10 math problems on a piece of paper. Do them. Look at every answer as most likely an even number. We had to use that to write code to root out and make the computer faster because I don't know the exact percentages, but I'm going to guess here. Let's say 76% of the time out of all the numbers, logical number constants you have, you're going to get an even value. So you tell the computer, search all even values first before odd values, because chances are in math that's what you're going to get using duality. I don't know why the learning systems are messed up to the point where that everybody has lost technology, man. Crystals, quartz crystal, piezoelectricity. That's a big key. We need to heal the world. Right now it's falling apart. I project in my data sets I have computers that help me, but I work with the computer and it respects that. If you're smarter